It's been said that Breaking Bad is one of the greatest TV shows of all time. It kept audiences engaged and on the edge of their seats, tuning in week to week. But what makes Breaking Bad so great? Well, to figure that out, we have to look no further than the pilot. Spoilers ahead. A typical TV pilot sets up the world of the show, introduces the main characters, and tells us just enough of the story to get us to come back for more. And the pilot of Breaking Bad did this with flying colors. Let's start with the teaser. Not only did the teaser do its job of hooking us immediately, but also give us a glimpse of the danger and overall mood of the TV show we're about to watch. Breaking Bad opens up with a strange and very confusing image. An RV speeding through the desert. Inside, a man sits wearing nothing but his underwear and a gas mask. As if that isn't strange enough, we also get the sense of danger as we see two dead bodies floating in a yellow liquid in the back. The teaser isn't only intense and exciting, but also somewhat humorous. More importantly, it leaves us confused, wanting to know what is going on. And as the man lifts his gun, it cuts to black, making us feel incomplete. We need to know what happens next, so we keep watching. Now that we know the teaser follows the 4 acts of the show, which I covered in an earlier video, let's take a look at Act 1. Breaking Bad is best known for crazy character development, and most of that is centered around the show's protagonist, Walter White. In the pilot episode, Vince Gilligan gives us a look at Walter White's everyday life to help us understand who this character is. Opening up, we see Walt in his regular morning routine, which is boring and dull. We find out that he's a chemistry teacher with a class filled with disrespectful teenagers.
Ionic bonds.
Clearly not exciting or rewarding. He also has a second job, washing cars. His pregnant wife is introduced, along with their not-so-passionate marriage. We find out his son has cerebral palsy, and looks up to his uncle Hank more than his own father. Hank happens to be a DEA agent. This is introduced as a threat which will shadow Walt throughout the entire series. You may ask, why is all this important? Well, by figuring out who Walter White is, we come to understand why he does the things he does. Or as writer Vince Gilligan put it,
the audience doesn't have to agree with anything Walt is doing, but they have to understand why he's doing what he's doing.
Vince knew he had to convince the audience to empathize with Walt. In The Anatomy of Story, John Truby writes, "To empathize with someone means to care about and understand him." And that's exactly what the pilot episode did with Walter White. Act 1 shows just how dull and frustrating Walt's life truly is, and how powerless he feels. Despite being a brilliant chemist, he's only a school teacher and constantly demeaned by those he loves. The world has beaten him down and left him hopeless, searching for purpose, leaving him already vulnerable and desperate, setting us up perfectly for the end of Act 1 when he suddenly collapses. Act 2 is usually used to set up the premise of the show, when the protagonist's life is turned upside down when something happens, so they decide to do something about it. And Breaking Bad does just that. Act 2 opens up with Walt's already troubled life being turned upside down.
Best case scenario with chemo, I'll live maybe another couple of years.
Walt is faced with cancer and the threat of his soon coming demise. Not only is he faced with death, but the thought of leaving his pregnant wife and child without any source of income frightens him more. Later on, Walt takes his brother-in-law Hank up for a ride-along, where he learns more about the meth business and even sees a former student escape from the raided meth lab. It's here Walt forms an idea.
The DEA took all your money, your lab. You got nothing. Square one. But you know the business. And I know the chemistry.
And now we have our premise. A high school chemistry teacher is diagnosed with terminal cancer, so he decides to cook meth to provide for his family. This leads us into Act 3. Breaking Bad used Act 3 to further develop our protagonist. Vince Gilligan knew that modern shows are based around stagnant characters. Wanting to change this, Vince used Act 3 to foreshadow Walt's transformation. Act 3 shows just how desperate Walt becomes when faced with death and what he's soon to do. He steals lab equipment from the school and later withdraws all of his savings to buy an RV where they would set up their meth lab. Act 3 also gave us a glimpse of the man Walt would later become when given a taste for power. While out shopping for clothes, a group of teenagers mock and ridicule Walt Jr., and Walt lashes out, taking the boys to the ground, showing us a side of Walt we wouldn't have seen in the previous acts. Walt is changing, off him realizing more and more that he likes it. This leads us in Act 4, our final act, bringing everything we've learned about Walt so far full circle. Because of his history with chemistry, we discover he excels at cooking meth. Not only does this help him create a perfect product, but also feeds his growing ego. He's the best at what he does, and he knows that. But Act 4 also sets up the tone for the rest of the series. Not only will they be cooking meth, but a lot of dangerous drug deals, bringing about near-death experiences to avoid being caught. Through Act 4, the show gives us a glimpse of the fun and danger to come, making us constantly wonder what will happen to our main characters in the next episode. So what does Breaking Bad teach us? Breaking Bad is heavily focused on its protagonist and his development as the story progresses, while also giving us a show that is full of danger and excitement, making us want to watch. The pilot sets the tone perfectly for the series and foreshadows the man Walt is doomed to become. It's this emphasis on character development that will keep us engaged not only with the story, but in each decision our characters make, keeping us coming back for more. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more.